Good morning. My name is Eric Monday, and I serve in finance and administration here at the university, and also have the opportunity to serve as a co-chair for the Provost Search Committee. Thank you so much for being here. Let me make a few opening comments, and then we will move very quickly. Our candidate this morning is Dr. Donna Arnett, our Dean of the College of Public Health, and we're very excited to have her here with us today. The search committee asked Dr. Arnett to focus on a topic this morning. The topic is understanding the current state of higher education. Please share your vision, thoughts, and priorities for the office of the provost. So how it'll work this morning is Dr. Arnett will share some opening comments. But the focus of today is also a time for you here in this facility as well as online who may be watching this stream to ask questions. So let me go over how we'll do that. For those in the auditorium, you have two ways to ask questions. You can come to these mics, or we will have some folks from HR and public relations, I see Kim Wilson to my left, that will have some note cards. So feel free to ask for a note card. You can write the question on the note card, and then we'll collect that. And as we go through this morning, I'll ask those questions. Additionally, for those watching via live stream, you can submit questions in two ways. You can email Provost Search, that's one word, Provost Search, at uky.edu, or you can tweet at UKY-Provost. Sarah Geegan here in the back is monitoring those feeds and will provide those questions to me as well to be asked. Lastly, we want your feedback after this forum. Feedback is going to be collected online, so that is on the Provost Search website, which is uky.edu/president/provost search. The website will be live and accepting comments until noon on Tuesday, December 12th. Thank you for being here, and let's welcome Dean Arnett.
Well, thank you for attending this morning. This is such an exciting time in the history of the University of Kentucky, and the landscape of higher education is changing rapidly. Our future success of the institution requires leadership that is quick, nimble, innovative, and invest in the right strategy. As a first-generation student born in London, Kentucky, I am deeply committed to continuing the vision of President Capilouto of being the university for Kentucky. I recognize the critical role that this university plays in transforming the lives of our students, our state, and our nation. My philosophy of administrative leadership emerges from my deep sense of core values, namely excellence, professionalism, innovation, and diversity and inclusion. My experience as a faculty member, a department chair, an associate dean for academic and strategic programs, and now dean, has really given me a key understanding of undergraduate and graduate education, research, and service, the three pillars of our academic institution. My training as an epidemiologist and president of the American Heart Association have really honed my skills as an analyst and strategic thinker, and my leadership qualities align well with the vision for the University of Kentucky, namely to transform the lives of our students and advance the Commonwealth we serve and beyond through our teaching and learning, diversity and inclusion, discovery, research, creativity, promotion of health, and deep community engagement. As requested by the search committee, I have organized my presentation today to address the disruptions that are being faced by higher education and my thoughts and priorities for how I would address those disruptions. In fact, disruptions need not be viewed in a negative light, and disruptions can actually offer us opportunities to create solutions. I will address my vision for undergraduate and graduate education through the lens of these disruptions, state my vision for diversity and inclusion, and my priorities for the future. So let's start with disruptions in the current state of higher education. There are substantial changes in the demographics and the needs of our students. In Kentucky and neighboring states, we have declining or flat high school graduation rates, meaning there are fewer students to draw from for a traditional freshman class. There are also great potentials for students to either transfer in or transfer out of the University of Kentucky, because 1 of 3 college students change institutions at least once. We also have the shrinking middle class, meaning that the undergraduate and graduate education is now out of reach for many. And for those who come to the university, about 1 in 3 of our students suffers extreme stress, and 1 in 2 suffers depression. I have extensive experience in the area of promoting healthy behaviors in my role as president of the American Heart Association, where I led the organization's original worksite wellness program and implementation. And I would be addressing these issues on the behalf of our students. In addition to these demographic changes, there are really phenomenal changes occurring in the delivery models and types of instructions that we need. I've created fully online programs and stood them up. I recognize the challenges inherent in them in starting up such programs, and also how to make these programs state-of-the-art and engaging for students. It's clear that the traditional approaches for instruction will be insufficient to meet the needs of future students. Working students need access to online education. Students who have some college credit and are working full-time need access to complete degrees outside of the traditional model. Employers need options for certificate programs to educate their workforce. And there's a real demand for stackable credits or a la carte programs. Creation of these will require interdisciplinary collaboration across our colleges, innovations, and nimbleness in execution. I will work closely with faculty and staff to understand how to create these programs at UK, and most importantly, how to execute them. And for students in the traditional model, we need to fully embrace the flipped classroom to enhance student engagement, to allow students to consume lecture materials at their own pace, and to provide for the instructor being present while the students actively apply that new knowledge in the classroom. All of this leads to improved student outcomes. Now, support for research is another huge disruption. For those who are securing extramural research funds from NIH, the pay lines are low, and the age at which someone achieves their first RO1 has grown dramatically over the past decade. It's now close to 50 years of age. This means that faculty are writing more and more grants to be successful. For those that do research that does not have a typical funding stream, there are different challenges. But in all cases, the issue is one of support. And the constant tension between securing research opportunity and balancing teaching. Being in the shoes of faculty, this often feels like you're being tugged in 2 directions. I've experienced this firsthand in my role as a faculty member at the University of Minnesota first, and subsequently in my role as chair at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, where I maintained an active teaching and research portfolio. This constant tug of war is something that faculty deal with on a day-to-day basis, and we have to find that right balance for faculty success. There are unrelenting pressures on higher education from state budgets, and this trend is unlikely to change, particularly in Kentucky, given the pressures from our pension crisis. And this is particularly concerning, given the pressures nationally to restrict growth in tuition and fees. There are also pressures on the federal side of the funding picture. So just yesterday, in Inside Higher Education, Moodys has downgraded higher education's outlook from stable to negative, predicting that expenses will outpace revenue growth, in the immediate future, and with particular impact on public universities. They also cite cuts to federal financial programs that will exacerbate problems. And to top it off, we have the new tax bill currently being negotiated that could hurt fundraising efforts, increase borrowing costs, and depress graduate student enrollment. And I know our president was advocating on the Hill yesterday for that very reason. From the student perspective, the picture is not good. Student loan debt has escalated substantially in the past decade, and the current average debt for students in the Commonwealth is about $28,000. That underlies some important differences across gender and ethnic groups. So this graph demonstrates the percentage calculated by taking a total student debt per person and dividing it by that person's annual income 1 year after graduation. So on average, student debt balances of African Americans are the highest of all groups. For African American women, it's a particular challenge where they have 111% of their annual income as their total student debt when they graduated, versus just 65% in Asian American men. Now, I presented a lot of bleakness here in these disruptions, but we have to view these disruptions as opportunities, and I'll discuss some of them now. You know, my vision for Provost is to continue the excellent progress we have made in our strategic plan for 2015 to 2020. But let me tell you a little bit about me and my leadership style. You know, I, as a chair and now as a dean, am a passionate advocate for faculty success, for student success, and for having a staff that is enabled and supported. All of this really emerges. I told you I have a deep sense of core values. And that really came home when I had a stroke at the age of 27. And it was that stroke and that life-threatening event that really pushed me to realize, you know, life is short, and I need to do something important. And in my career, I've funneled that into being an active researcher, and more rewarding to me, an active champion for students and for faculty. Now, we're making good progress. From the realignment of our 4 pillars of student and academic success. So the first pillar is academic success, the second, financial stability, the third, belonging and engagement, and the fourth, wellness. To fostering excellence in graduate education, to expanding our scholarship and research, and promoting inclusive excellence. Before launching new initiatives, I would seek first to understand the activities of individual units. And it occurs to me that being from public health, it really does give me the opportunity to understand both sides of campus in a unique way. So physically, public health is located right at the intersection of the health side of campus and the other side of campus. Now, what's interesting is that probably half of my faculty were really trained on the other side of campus. So we have faculty from geography, from sociology, from psychology, from medical sociology, from anthropology, from statistics. So much of our work in the college really derives from these behavioral-based, social-based kinds of questions. So I have a unique perspective about both sides of campus based on my role as Dean of Public Health. So I told you that it's not all bleak. We have opportunities. So I'm taking those same disruptions and now looking at what we could do, what could be a vision, what could be a solution for the issues of the changing demographics. Recall that we have flat declining enrollments because of fewer high school graduates, and we have all of this opportunity around student transfers. So if 1 in 3 students is changing colleges, well, let's get those students to UK. So we're going to need to expand our markets to include those transfer students. So we must identify those partners. And we also need to look for adult students who have some college to be able to complete their degrees. There's a large number of people with some education who work full-time and they need access to training to complete those degrees. I would also propose to partner with our business community. I've done this within my college. I would propose to do this also with the university to create a council of CEOs. Let's partner with our business partners in the community to find financial support for that shrinking middle class student, and also think through ways that we could create programs that will help those poorer students get technical training to get a job and have employers continue to support them through their bachelor's degree program. We could also think through curricular realignments that allow on-the-job training to count for credits. Other colleges are doing this very well. We could evaluate extant well-being programs. There are many that are happening now on campus, but they're happening in disjointed ways. So I would bring faculty, students, and staff together to build quality initiatives around wellness because it is such a critical part of student success. With respect to creating solutions for delivery and type of instructions, we must increase our online footprint. We could create completer degrees and certificates and meet students where they are in the evening online. We could increase, and I propose to increase the use of flipped classrooms so that we're providing a better student experience for the undergraduate student. We also need to focus on the training of skills needed in the workplace. When you look at what employers are requesting, they want technical skills, but what's so important now for success of students working out in the community is the soft skills. We need to augment our training in those soft skills, so we need technical knowledge coupled with problem solving and teamwork skills. We need to train our students how to think critically and how to have broader skills in communication. I would propose to enhance the integration of curricular and co-curricular activities, including the living learning communities. And I would partner with deans and chairs to invest in training faculty for these teaching skills that embrace this new technology. Let's find ways to re-excite and re-energize our faculty. In terms of enhanced research support, I would continue. There's currently a committee that's working on high-impact practices. Undergraduate research is a great tool to create success in our undergraduate students. And we need to find, on the graduate side, more opportunities for training grants. We don't have very many here. And so I would be partnering with Lisa Cassis, the VPR, to work with identifying NIH and NSF fundings. I would want to create more internal pilot grant opportunities, including opportunities for non-health related research. I would want to partner with the colleges and the VPR to provide support in extramural funding where extramural funding is not a possibility. And finally, I would partner with the VPR and colleges to create bridge funding. And a program that I started when I was at the American Heart Association, I would love to see happen here, which was something called a partnership or a collaboration grant, where you incentivize creation of multidisciplinary teams across colleges to incentivize that kind of work. And that's already happening right now in the space of medicine with Dean DePaulo's VIP program. There are some unique aspects to graduate student success that I wanted to talk about that are just a bit different than undergraduate. In successful graduate education, you can't be successful unless you have that close connection between research and education. So we have to grow and maintain a strong research portfolio. I would continue the Blue Ribbon Task Force started by Provost Tracy. That work is still ongoing, and I expect that to continue, and to work with that task force to truly understand their proposed solutions for enhancement of graduate education. I would want to work with the VPR also to develop areas of research excellence where UK is already strong, so that we could advocate and build excellent graduate programs that align with our research excellence. I would want to also increase utilization of the university's scholars program. Currently, you can apply 12 undergraduate credits toward a degree, and I would like us to think more critically as we're engaging with our undergraduate classes and getting students to think through extending into a master's degree for a professional program. And about 1 in 3 students who come into an undergraduate program want to go into graduate school. So let's find ways to identify that early and create a platform that allows students to transition, get that shared credit, and be done with a master's degree and undergraduate degree in 5 years. I would also, based on what happens with the Blue Ribbon Task Force, consider creation of a college of graduate and interdisciplinary education so that we can create these certificate programs that employers are seeking and get that programming necessary to address those soft skills. Now, increased cost. That part is bleak, I have to admit. As a provost, though, I would really continue advocacy for higher education. I'm not going to get too jaded about that. I would be a strong advocate. We have to relentlessly pursue graduation rates. And it's not for the financial reason alone. You know, if students stay in college, we get tuition, right? But it's because of the success of students. We know how much more wealth generation students secure once they obtain their undergraduate degree. And we need, for the success of Kentucky, to have more students succeed with an undergraduate diploma. We need to focus on value, so we need to have a thorough understanding internally about what it costs for a degree and what the outcomes are in terms of job placement, so that we can market that to our students. I would also want to focus on job placements for students, so finding ways to increase internship opportunities, and it's also a reason why I would want this Council of CEOs to create those strong partnerships we need with our business community in order to provide the very best internship possibilities for our students. I would continue the UK Leads program. It's shown some initial success, particularly in the area of retention of students with unmet financial need. And I would continue the academic scholarships because we are the flagship of the state. I've had a long-standing passion and deep value around diversity and inclusivity. In my former role as chair at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, I had about a quarter of my class that was African American. And I had one faculty member who was African American when I came. When I left, I'd hired 9 African American and 1 Latino faculty. And we had a minority white faculty when I left. And we had to do that because it represented who our students were. And it really was a phenomenal transition in the culture of our department. So as dean, I've hired the first assistant dean for inclusive excellence. And I hope to continue that work if I'm not moved into the provost position within my college. But I would strongly advocate for increasing the ethnic diversity on campus and addressing the other areas of inclusivity aside from gender and race. I would identify strategies to further inclusive excellence. We would continue the Persistence Grant Program, which is utilized proportionately more by underrepresented minority students. And I would work tirelessly to attract underrepresented minority faculty, and I would continue to support their recruitment and possibly increase the faculty salary assistant plan that's currently in place. So, in summary then, I think you know where I think we can go. My priorities for the future are to continue to strengthen the undergraduate student success. That means increased retention, increased graduation rates, more undergraduate research and internships, and increased job placement. I would strengthen the graduate and professional education. I would work to maintain a very close relationship with the Vice President for Research. I would continue to advance our research enterprise, including non-health related research. And finally, my leadership style is to work collaboratively, shoulder to shoulder with the deans and chairs so that we can prioritize new growth areas for new revenue streams and define areas where we could be efficient. That concludes my vision statement for the Office of Provost, and I'm happy now to entertain questions.
Okay, as a reminder, y'all can come up to the mics for everyone who's in the audience as well. But we'll start with a few questions that we've received via email, Dean Arnett. With too few resources to go around and talks of further budget cuts, is it time for UK to look at reducing the number of academic programs it offers?
As provost, I would first want to understand the strengths and weaknesses if they do exist, and I'm sure there are some, within colleges, and work with those chairs to understand fully what areas are strong and where we could grow opportunity in those areas. The discussion about should colleges be merged, should departments be merged, is one that I think my leadership style is seek first to understand. So before I would launch into that kind of merger, I would want to understand the downstream consequences, both from a benefits perspective and a cost savings perspective, and the downstream cost. You know, there's a lot of cost that happens in faculty morale, in identity, and you can't underestimate those kinds of losses. And so I would want to first really, truly understand where we could gain momentum that would be supported by the majority of faculty.
We have another question from the audience. Does internationalization feature in your vision? If so, how do you think about UK's future as a globally engaged, or not, university?
So internationalization is a key part of a growth strategy. I see Associate Provost Sue Roberts in the audience. So from a being a global citizen perspective, it's critically important for us to grow our undergraduate experiences abroad. And I think having those experiences occur earlier in their curriculum is also important because it opens so many opportunities for them and growth experiences for them later. I also see partnerships around the world, we already have some in place, to grow our number of international students. Now we have the challenges with the current proposed ban on travel from certain countries, and I know that that is hurting recruitment from certain parts of the world, understandably. But I do think internationalization is key to any successful flagship university.
We'll continue. Can you share more about what you know is happening on campus currently with wellness, and what your goals to improve these services are?
Yes. So I have been working with the provost and the president to evaluate what we have currently going on campus. And we do actually have a lot going on. So in terms of assessments, we do a random sample survey of our student population every 2 years using a national survey instrument, and that just finished this past fall. And we've done that survey twice. We had our own homegrown survey before that every 2 years. And that data is really what I use to cite that 1 in 3 of our students feel extreme stress and 1 in 5 are depressed. We also work in this space of training our first-year students in alcohol, so understanding the effects of alcohol, and most importantly, harm reduction, and strategies for not over-imbibing and binge drinking. So that part is going on. On the provost end, we've increased the number of counselors in the reorganization of student and academic life. And so that counseling piece is also going on. We have our student health services piece as well for general health needs of our students. But all of these are functioning out of different parts, different offices. And so it would be, from my vision, it would be great to create a council of health and well-being that could work together to identify the best strategies. And we have some of the best people in the world in this domain, in health communication, in kinesiology. We could build a really great program together.
This question comes from a budget officer, not me. And I heard, and so this says, I heard that you have completed a restructure of the budget office of your college when you were a relatively new dean. I want to ask your vision about financial, budgetary, operation services. You have mentioned faculty success, student success. What does staff success mean to you?
How many questions were in that question, Eric? Let me start with staff success, and then I'll come back and ask you to repeat the question. So we did indeed restructure our business office. I took a full year after arriving to really understand the college, and we went through a full year of grounds up, every stakeholder involved strategic planning for our college. And it was clear that there were needs within the college. This became really clear as a researcher when I had to submit my progress report, and I had no idea what my financial status was of my grant, and I had to type it myself into the e-commons. So we needed post-award, we needed pre-award, improved pre-award services. We had a great pre-award manager, but there was no continuity of research. There was no help for IRB, for instance, for those of us who do human research. And so I consulted and worked with HR for over 6 months to look at what is the right structure that maximizes faculty success. So I have done that restructure. I tease my staff that we're trying to get up to baseline because we had no processes or procedures in the college. And so we've really worked together as a team to create those for the college. Now, undergoing change is hard in any organization, and change management requires really active listening and working to build trust. So I engaged my staff council to help build the morale of our college. And it's been slowly improving. Some of the examples of things I've done. We went to a baseball game this summer. We've done, as a staff, I went with them. We've done coffees with the dean every month. And because we're so geographically spread across the campus, I go to different buildings every time, and we meet with the staff in those buildings. So those are just some examples of what I've done with staff and how I would work as provost with staff. Now, budget officer, you had questions about budget.
I'll come back to that. Let's
okay.
Question from the audience.
All right.
Well, I'm trying to help encourage more audience participation. But first of all, let me thank you for considering the provost position and the nice presentation you gave. Dr. Arnett. I'm Joe Chappelle. I'm in the College of Pharmacy and a long-time faculty member here at the university. And I would suggest that we are all the products in this room and largely across the campus of a transformation in higher education that is really, it dates back about 50 years to this concept of the multiversity, the term that was used to describe the evolution of our academic institutions to make them what we are today. And I'm also reminded by some of your comments by Dr. Thielen's thesis, who is a faculty member in our College of Education, that expresses quite a bit of concern about the perversion of the aspirations of an academic institution towards a business model like we certainly face in today's world, the constraints, financial constraints. And so I'm wondering if you share that concern about the absence of a new aspiration for institutions of higher learning, such as the University of Kentucky, to inspire those students, to inspire the outcomes that I think you so much desire, to inspire the staff, to inspire the faculty, to reach much beyond where we currently are and on to the next generation of great accomplishments that our academic institutions must have if we're going to be successful in raising the social consciousness of our culture. And if you don't agree with that, please indicate why you would be, what you would change in the philosophical grain of our academic institution to help us reach these new heights. I know that was a long, I'm sorry, I meant to start us off and not give a diatribe.
Well, thank you for that. You know, as a good administrator, my hope is that the faculty and in particular the students never sense that urgency of the financial model, right? That we protect our faculty from having that experience, because honestly, being a faculty member should be one of the most freeing occupations. You decide your research, you work with your department chair to organize your teaching, you work with your students. It's really an entrepreneurial position. And I don't mean that from a business end, I mean that from a creativity and discovery end. So my goal, and it's an ambitious one, I'll give you that, is to work with the EVP of Finance and the VP of Research to really try to create alignment of resources so that colleges can do the work of enjoying being educators and being researchers and doing service. So I really am about making the jobs of faculty what they should be.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Heather Carpenter from the newly formed Lewis Honors College. First of all, I'd like to thank you for, in your presentation, kind of acknowledging the diminishing and kind of dire socioeconomic circumstances that we're in right now. I know in job talks, that's a very brave thing to do. The other thing I wanted to mention was that, like I said, I'm from the Lewis Honors College, and I get to work with some of the best students on campus, undergraduate students on campus, and I'm privileged to be able to do that. I realize in part, and why I can call them some of the best students on campus is not just because they're so academically prepared, but because they are financially cared for. And that's a difficult reality for me to accept. We have between a 92 and 96% graduation rate within 4 years for our undergraduates. And the campus in general, it's not that. And it's actually, 62% in 6 years? So, and a big part of that is that the unneeded economic scholarship issues for students, it's life that gets in the way, not necessarily sometimes academic preparedness, but it's life. So how might you work to get the general undergraduate students on campus to reach those kinds of retention and graduation rates?
So I think that it's not tackling one thing. One thing that you learn in population health is that the drivers or the distal drivers of issues with health tend to be socioeconomically related. Poverty, lack of transportation. And so I would really continue to utilize the analytics to understand what are the drivers of our graduation rates and our retention rates and address the needs of those students. I also would entertain more novel methods of trying to create peer-to-peer help so that we can understand students who are struggling earlier in that struggle. So I would continue the LEADS program that we've already begun, and I think that's already shown some success. Continue our data analytics to find out, are there ways we could figure out from the data where students are struggling, and then work to get at them earlier. I also think paying a lot more attention, and this is where I still need to get into colleges with deans and understand, paying attention to that first-year undergraduate experience, getting our best teachers in those classrooms, and having more one-on-one teacher to student interactions, I think are important. I think part of the Honors College, small classes, right? Lots of engagement with the faculty. How do we mirror some of that for the less academically gifted students?
Good morning, Dean Arnett. I'm Casey Shaddix. I'm from the College of Health Sciences, and I serve as Director of Advising, but I've been advising students for about a decade on our campus. And so I absolutely applaud your championing faculty and sort of safeguarding those roles so that they can do the important work with students, but also for student development on campus. We've done a lot of great work to reorganize campus to help our students best succeed and positively impact those rates. But I also know that our students on campus, for morale, for the staff, and for the students, we build really strong relationships with those students, and in a lot of cases where we don't have minority faculty members in a lot of these faculty lines, a lot of our students who are from underrepresented student populations, not only racial, ethnic, gender, but also from first-generation perspectives. I was a first-generation student, and so the people that I connected with best on my campus at North Carolina State, another large institution, were academic advisors, were people in the residence halls, were those student development folks, were administrative assistants who spent the time to have really meaningful conversations with me, even though they weren't related to my academic progress per se. And so I would be interested in hearing your perspectives on safeguarding staff on campus and helping to build up the staff, but also helping to ignite those relationships between staff and students and support that in a very concrete way so that we can settle out a lot of the changes that have happened more recently.
Well, thank you for that question. I met last night with the Senate and Staff Council, and it's clear from my conversations with the Staff Council that there's a lot of change happening right now on campus, and that staff feel like the sort of middle child between faculty, where there's much attention towards faculty success, and the students, where we have, of course, a great deal of attention, and they're the ones in the middle doing a lot of the day-to-day work to maintain the organization and those relationships with students. So I would take the same approach that I've been using in my college of meeting in informal ways with staff around the SAL group to understand what the needs are and how to build that relationship with the provost office.
Thank you.
Hi, Bert Spear, I'm College of Medicine. You talked a little bit about revenue streams, Donna. And I guess I noticed yesterday that Columbia University College of Medicine received a $250 million gift, which is probably going to be nice. But anyway, so my question is about philanthropy and sort of, what do you think your role would be as provost in the area of philanthropy, and how much of your effort would go into that area?
Okay, great question. So I think from the provost perspective, we do expect the deans and the colleges to have a very active role in development and working with the vice president for philanthropy, Mr. Ritchie, and that I would continue. But there are ways that I could also support deans. For instance, if they have important guests coming and potential donors, I would work to support them and be with them during an ask. I also think there's a lot of potential for educational scholarships from foundations. We've been doing a lot of work within my college to find those scholarship dollars. And so growing scholarship dollars with foundations, I could see that as being one of the roles as provost that I would be directly involved with philanthropy.
Dean Arnett, we have a question online. What are your thoughts concerning graduate student autonomy? Grad students currently have no dedicated representation on campus, nor do they have a say over a proportional degree of their fees, even though their needs and interests are distinct from undergraduate students.
So in some campuses, there are graduate student organizations that act as a lobby to carry forward the needs of the graduate students and make their needs known. And I'd be fully supportive of that. I'm a strong believer in governance at every level. And so creating a student governance for graduate students, I would be in favor of.
Okay, we have another question here. You spoke about caring for deep engagement in the community. How have you supported or encouraged the core of the Landgrant Mission in your current or previous roles? If you have not had interaction in the past, how would you perceive your involvement with that mission going forward?
Terrific question. And we are the land-grant institution based on the Morrill Act of 1862. I have been at one other land-grant institution at the University of Minnesota and now here at the University of Kentucky. Actually, one of the reasons I was attracted to the university, and when I spoke to President Capilouto before coming, it was because we do have extension agents in every county of the 120 counties here in the state of Kentucky. And so I viewed that from my public health lens as a potential way that we could deliver public health interventions in every community in the state. So I value the land-grant mission. I know that there's currently a report being organized out of the provost office about extension, and I know that is still not completed. And I would really want to engage with Dean Cox and the members of that group that have overseen that extension report to fully understand the purpose, the content, and how we could move forward. There's certainly great models in other states like Texas where there's been a strong collaboration and change in the way the extension agents are working. So I would work with that committee and look for ideas from other successful states.
All right, Dean Arnett, please describe how you would go about creating a college of graduate and interdisciplinary education.
So we currently have the graduate school, and under the graduate school is a Martin school, so we already have a school within a school, so that's a little odd. So making it a college just feels more in alignment with other colleges on campus. So I would want to, again, work with the deans and identify areas where we could create these interdisciplinary programs. There's some examples that we could build from. So it would be a partnership with the deans and creating those multidisciplinary collaborations around interdisciplinary education and creation of new programs. And then I would have to work with the Senate to really move that through formal approval processes.
Part of the Provost's area of responsibility is evaluating and responding to crises on campus. Student deaths, scandals, protests, threat assessment, etc. Please describe your previous experience in crisis management.
So I have had experience, in addition to my academic role with the American Heart Association. So I've learned a great deal about strategies about communication and in crisis mode. So from a communication standpoint, I've had lots of experience in terms of crisis management. I think, could you repeat the question, Eric? Is it about my experience in crisis management and communication?
I think you expanded that. The specific question was, please describe your previous experience in crisis management under the theme of some of the Provost area's responsibilities.
Okay. So I've had experience in dealing with the deaths of students, and so within the college, at a prior institution. And so what we have done is you have to articulate, and this is why I brought up my experience in crisis communication, because communication is critically important in the context of crisis. You need to get the right information out. The information needs to be consistent from every voice that is under your office. And you need that personal interaction at the point of contact with the affected individuals and setting up resources for those who have been impacted by that crisis. So I have experience in those areas.
Okay, another question. How will you seek and use input from deans, chairs, faculty, and students? In particular, what do you see as the appropriate balance between being guided by input from members of the university community and by recommendations from outside consultants?
So being a dean, I'm not aware of those outside consultants other than what we've heard at our dean's councils. So we've had outside consultants looking at matriculation of students. The Staymates group came in and spoke to us about that. So, I do think there are times when you have a specific question, like the question that Staymates came in and addressed for the provost and relayed to us as deans was, why are students not choosing us? And what are the drivers of those who do choose us? Those are important questions, right? Those are questions that we as deans, we could probably design the research study, but we couldn't execute all of that work of doing the survey, doing the analysis, and writing it up. So I think there is a balance of using those external resources. When we have internal resources, I would use them for specific tasks. I am a shoulder-to-shoulder person working with people to get things done. And I would continue to work with deans and their department chairs to address important questions. If we can address it quickly, then I would secure outside consulting. But that's a balance that I've lived in my own college and in my prior life as a chair.
Would you continue to support UK 101 and UK 201 for incoming students?
Yes.
All right, continuing. What are your thoughts about restoring common reading experience? And other first-year programs? Any other comments about other first-year programs for students?
So I think reading experiences is one way to unite us as a campus, and I think there's value in having one discussion point from a very cogent reading that can unite everyone. And so I would advocate for continuing that kind of programming.
Okay, one final question, Dean Arnett. What are your thoughts on the most recent tax bill and its potential impacts on graduate education? What steps could you envision taking to ensure the welfare of graduate students?
This is a critically important area for our institution. I saw Eric King, our federal lobbyist, on Saturday. He said he'd been up till 3 a.m. working with McConnell's office to remove the stipend tax for our graduate students, and then that, you will note, was not part of the Senate bill. There was a group appointed by McConnell that is doing the reconciliation between the House and the Senate, and based on my conversation with Eric, McConnell will be pushing strongly to protect our graduate students. If worse comes to worse and the bill were passed, I would have to work with the VPR and the VP of Finance to identify a short-term strategy to make students currently enrolled have a livable wage. And so we would have to do some kind of emergency programming in the short term. I have longer term plans to try to grow revenues through like those 4+1 programs I described earlier. But for the short term, we would have to make sure our students can survive and stay in college.
Dean Arnett, that concludes the questions. Any final comments for the audience?
Well, someone asked me an interesting question last night. Why do you want to be provost? And I just want to reiterate that, you know, I am passionate for Kentucky. I am passionate as an academic. I want to ensure success of every faculty member and student and staff member of this campus. And I will work hard and quick, learn, and be as smart as I can to be your provost. Thank you.